Hello, welcome. This is ArtCat. Saturday again. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm just going to pop up all the other channels. So we are going live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch and Instagram all at the same time. It's the same thing every week. It's just a little kind of get together, talking about the artwork that I'm doing. Talking about your artwork as well. If you want to join in, you can ask loads of questions. I'll swap over my glasses as well because I just realised that I can't see very well on the screens. Old age. What are you gonna do? So I've been doing this painting for the last month or two. We're getting back to it. Possibly a little bit longer than that. It's actually been lasting for about 2 years. I'm going to switch over the channels over on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook to draw cam. So say hello to everybody else. Hello. How are you? Hope you're all able to join us. Claire McWilliams, you joined us already. That's great. You're a wee bit muffled. Oh dear. Hang on a second. Let me just check this out for you. Hopefully that'll be better for you. I've realised that if I leave my windows open in the different chat rooms, the different places and stuff, and I don't turn the sounds down, you get like an echo voice of me going repeated. So anyway, that's all sorted out. So what I was going to do this week, I didn't work on this on screen last week. I kind of worked off screen and fixed some things I was working on, predominantly around Julie's face, hands, and a horse that you can maybe barely see. Move my head out of the way for you guys over on YouTube, facing Twitchbook. Did the horse, figured out some things with a hand. So yeah, I've got to a stage now where I'm kind of happier with structures and where things are in the picture. But with the painting process itself, as you paint with oil paints, some areas can seem to go a bit matte looking. I'm okay now, good. Thanks, Claire. I think you're over on, we've got to check out where I am. You're over on Facebook, am I correct? Yeah, you are. You're on Facebook. So yeah, if you want to drop by and say hello, wherever you are, do say hello. Got a couple of people who joined us on Instagram. Arts and Embers joined. Hello, good to see you. So with this picture, got to a stage where, happy with where all the structures are. It's kind of, I've got to a stage where I was painting it. I stopped for a couple of years on the painting, sat in the studio. Knew there was something not quite right about it. My skill set wasn't quite there to complete the picture. Restructured everything, got a happier place where things are, but where I've been painting with several different layers of paint and adding and things like that, the paint underneath kind of absorbs the oil medium, and the paint itself can go a bit matte. Now you might have seen these on videos where they varnish their pictures and suddenly all the colours pop and come back to life again, because it's literally about adding that medium back into the oils that are on the canvas. Now I'm not necessarily varnishing. What I'm going to do today is a thing called oiling out, which is to basically add a little bit of oil and stand oil, which is like linseed oil, mixed with some Sandor spirit, which is not white spirit. So it's about 1 to 5 ratio, so it's 1 part stand oil, 5 parts my dilutant, if you want to call it that. Mix that together, mix it together in a little glass jar. So I've got it there, and I'm going to apply it to the surface. So I won't actually be painting on this today, but hopefully you'll get to see that a lot of these, if I move out of the way a little bit, you might get a better picture. A lot of these areas are very, very flat looking, very dull, and where I've been painting in different parts, some are a little bit more glossy. I won't actually be covering the hand much today, because I was painting that a little bit yesterday to get some of the structures into it. So the paint in this area is a little bit wet, but I'm going to be oiling out. I'm putting this medium, the solution, over the whole picture. Normally you do this flat, so purists out there, don't start freaking out at me. It's a case of where I'm adding the solution to it, I'm kind of laying it out quite thinly. I'm not pouring it all over. It's not like a varnish where you see them sort of pour big globules of Dharma varnish all over, and then spread it out with a nice brush. I'm actually going to apply it with a lint-free cloth, like a t-shirt material that doesn't have much fluff, basically. I'm going to lightly reapply oil all over the surface of the painting, so hopefully it'll come back to life again. So these kind of dead areas. It also helps you figure out tonal differences, because when you're painting over a period of time with several layers of different paints in different areas, they do all dry at slightly different rates and things, and I want to reinvigorate the entire surface so I can get a better idea about the tonal qualities of the colours that I have, because when they dry very matte, and with some pigment in some oil paints, and because of that you can't quite see the true nature of the colour. So you might be carrying away painting say a face or something like that, but you don't quite see its tonality with the background if that's going to be a little bit matte. It's not until you apply this oiling out process, or you've waited to the end and you've put a varnish on your picture, the colours really start to come out, and they can sometimes jar a little bit. So to stop that from happening, I'm going to do a process called oiling out. So that's what I'm going to do today, and then I'm going to go on to my next picture. Oh, apparently I still have an echo on Facebook. Do I still have an echo? Am I a little bit better now? We'll find out. Claire thankfully is telling me. So yeah, if you have a problem on Facebook and they're not playing games, I'm also available on Instagram. I think that's you, Beatnik Belfast, who's also now on Instagram. So yeah, that's all I'm going to do. It's just oil out. But I'm going to go on to the next picture today as well. Part of this series called Mammalian. About 2 years ago, I interviewed a lot of my friends, sat down, worked out basically we based the painting on a conversation. And at the time, I did a quick pencil sketch of them, and I'd thought about the composition of nearly every picture that I did at that time. So I kind of knew what it is I want to achieve in each of these pictures. So these have all sort of been brewing at the back of my head to get onto the canvas. During COVID, I've kind of ignited that kind of drive to do the entire series of paintings, and it's been an enjoyable process kind of revisiting them, and a challenge to revisit a painting that you've kind of half done, because it's a lot more work to rework a painting than it is to figure a painting out from the beginning, paint it kind of fresh all the way through. So I'm kind of looking forward to that the next picture will be painted from fresh, and I can carry on my enthusiasm from relearning these pictures to infuse the next range of artwork. So that's what we'll be doing today. Not sure how long it's going to last. Might be just an hour, might be a couple of hours. Normally I do 2 hours on a Saturday, doing ArtCat. But yeah, if you want to talk about your artwork, what you're doing, more than happy. Claire, you're saying Insta is grand. It is grand. I quite like Instagram because it's lovely, because it allows me it tells me who pops in. So we've had a couple more people join. Jimmy Brewwood has joined, and Main T04. Hello, good to see you. So yeah, if you've joined in any of the other places, you can join the chat room. Please feel free to type say hello, text, whatever it is you want to talk about. Is it your artwork in general? Things that you're working on? Any good tips, tricks, inspirations, call outs for artworks, competitions, anything like that you can talk about. Quite happy to kind of take as much information as possible. Jimmy Brewwood, you sent a request to be in my video. Thank you. I'm not sure if sometimes people hit the wrong button, but you can let me know if you want to talk about something specific. We might join you on Instagram. Sadly, people on Facebook, YouTube and Twitch won't, Facebook, YouTube and Twitch won't be able to see it on Instagram. But yeah, tell me what it is you want to talk about and we'll see. So yeah, I'm just going to apply this solution. So basically wet the cloth with the solution, and I'm just going to lightly apply this over the entire surface. And as I say, I'm not going to be working painting wise on this picture today, because this oil needs to kind of bed into the oil paint, and I want to kind of let it soak in, so I might have to reapply it in certain areas. So I'm just going to watch that face, because I did paint that the other day, and putting this oil solution, or it's kind of mixed between Stand Oil and the mineral spirit, which is I use Sandor. I also use Zest It as well. Now some people do this in smaller areas as they're painting, and just do it in the areas that they're working in, but I wanted to get a better picture of what the whole thing was looking like, and as you can see that so much on the screen. The colours are really coming back to life again. I know that a lot of people will be balking at this, because you're supposed to do this on a flat, and I'm doing it on a horizontal so you can see it. But I just wanted to oil out so I can see the painting and the colours a little bit better. I started to add some detail and textures into the background, which is starting to really come out now. Really starting to see those. So you don't need an awful lot of this. This is a little on my lint-free cloth. It's basically t-shirt material. If you're trying to find, you don't need to go off and buy expensive applicators or anything like that. So I'm not going over her face, because I worked on that the other day, and the oil will be still quite fluid on there, so still quite a lot of medium on there. I just want to get that hairline, but the colours have really come back to life in front of me, so I'm able to see a little bit better the picture. I'm using the same part of the rag. I'm not kind of adding much more solution to it, so a little goes a long way. You don't want to kind of have drips and runs of this stuff going all over. Take it right into the corners as well. Just a little tiny bit more just towards the end there. So again, this is a solution of Stand Oil, mineral spirits. Ratio is 5:1, so 1 part Stand Oil, it's like a linseed oil, not the linseed oil you get in hardware shops, not that stuff, and 5 parts Sandor. Mix that together. You can kind of experiment yourself and play around with it, see what best suits you. If you're using a different ratio and it works for you, great, fine. I think a lot of this is experimentation and taste about what suits you best. I watched a few videos on YouTube and was kind of impressed by the level of technical quality people are building into their paintings and the archival aspect of it. Now, a part of this is that archival aspect where you paint more layers onto your picture, you use kind of, it's that fat over lean thing you hear people talk about, where you don't want to use thick oil layers and then thin oil layers over the top, because the thin oil layers will dry faster, and then over a period of time that will create the cracking effect that most conservatives have to work. I was thinking about the other day and thinking, am I just future-proofing the work of a conservator in years down the line that they've got work to do, or is it now that everybody's more technically aware that there'll be less work for them to do in the future? Using the kind of this process, the next layers of paint that now go onto this will be thinner. I won't be using it as they'll be more refined and delicate, so I'm not putting thick layers over a thin paint, because they're all going to dry at different rates, and the thicker paint is going to take longer to dry, and you're going to get cracking and things like that. So this is just a archival way of painting, but also it's a very functional way of painting. Doing this really helps me see the colours. The colours are really popping out a little bit more. I don't know how well this comes across on screen. Probably not very well at all, because I've noticed on Instagram especially that if I move out, because it's just on a camera phone, the light changes and it'll suddenly get brighter as it's just done there. And therefore you're not getting a true sense of what the true nature of the colours are. That's why it's always good to go and see artwork in real life if you can, when COVID is over. So yeah, that kind of process of just oiling out has really helped me see the tonal qualities of the paint, how dark paint is, the colours are, or how bright the colours, some colours are. I say I'm not going over that hand too much because of the fact that I only painted it the other day, and there's lots of work still to do on it. Structure wise, I'm quite happy with it. Make sure I go right up to the edges of this thing, into all corners. It's just so I can get a nice uniform state. So I got to that stage with it, and I'm not going to do anything until it dries. I'm just going to leave it. I'll leave it for a couple of days and then come back to it, and if it needs to be re-oiled again, it's just letting me know that the paint is quite absorbent, the substrate is quite absorbent, even though this has got layers of gesso underneath the painting. It's the paint itself, depending on the paint that you use, sucks in all of the oils and absorbs them all, and that's why you get sometimes a very shiny bit of painting and a very matte bit of painting if you're using oil paints. So hopefully this just kind of unify the surface a little bit, so my next layer, my next pass of painting can be more nuanced, but give me a better idea about the tonal quality, about how dark that dark is, where I might need to bring some of this dark into the umbrella, rework this umbrella as well. Part of what I'd worked on ages and ages ago in the umbrella had been painted quite thickly, and I actually shaved that layer of paint off because it was quite textural, and it was now textural in an area that the umbrella isn't existent. It was actually in this area here, which you can't see. And it's going to move around a little bit there. So it was actually in this area here. So I know I have to repaint this sky a little bit to reapply the paint to it and restructure where this umbrella goes. There's a lot more detail where that might look quite detailed, but it was the old painting. I need to go back over that. So some of this area was quite it had texture to it, and the texture is now going to be in one place. Obviously, if I'm going to paint over it, so I had to kind of rub that back. It's one of the flexible parts about oil painting is that you can revisit it and overpaint it and refine it and change it. But I'm just aware of the surface quality that I need to unify it. So that's part of the reason why I was doing that today. Another tip is, once you've done this, if you've been using linseed oil, is to chuck your rags out, throw them away. Reason being, if you leave these around, linseed oil has an unusual effect that it can actually spontaneously combust, which I didn't know which I kind of found out today. So as a safety tip, once you finish with these, chuck them away. Or you can use them as firelighters if you have a nice open fire like we do and it gets a bit cold. We've had hail this week. It's supposed to be May. We had about 2 or 3 inches of hail during the week. It's really strange. So we've got a few more people joined us. Lorraine Van Wyck, hello, and Angela, hi, good to see you. Angela's now on YouTube, hello. Good to see you there as well. So yeah, that's all I'm going to do to this picture. It's got a bit of a sheen to it now. The colours are a little bit more vibrant. I did kind of, where I left this off the other week, I was kind of just starting to draw this horse. For you guys on Instagram, YouTube and Twitch, what I'm actually going to do is zoom into that so you can see the horse a little bit better. Hopefully get you back in. There's a small time delay between all of the different social media streams, so I have to wait until they all catch up and I can see it on my monitor. And then what I'll do for you Instagram is I'll bring you closer as well so you can see it yourself. And just talking about how I kind of restructured the horse, because it was initially up here, believe it or not, and that was part of the issue with the whole painting, is that the physicality of it, how she's holding the horse, couldn't possibly happen because our arm was too short. So I had to change the picture. Sometimes, although you might paint something well, if it's not the right place, you've got to move it, and that's what I had to do. And it's taught me a little bit more about where my assumptions of where things go in. Sometimes I get too enthusiastic about painting and I'm just carrying on. I'm not really paying attention to the painting itself and what the painting needs. I'm just really enjoying myself in the moment of painting it, and I lose concentration. Sometimes that time to sit back and reflect is important in your artwork, to figure out what might need to move, what might need to change. There's an idea of kind of being quick is being good. You can be efficient, and therefore your picture is produced quickly, but because you're efficient, you're a better painter. Not necessarily about speed. Sometimes slowing yourself down speeds up your painting because you're not making so many mistakes. So you might think, oh, taking time out to sit back and reflect on my artwork is a bit laborious and a bit mechanical, but even if you're spending 5-10 minutes in the studio in the morning whilst you're having a cup of coffee, prop, it's not a real prop, in fact it's a real cup of coffee, even if you're spending that first half an hour, just sit down and look at your work that you've done previous day and just reflect. Is this working? Do I need to change? Is the colours right? The tone's right? The positioning of things right? Do I need to adjust them? And it's okay to keep adjusting until the picture starts to solidify, even if you're working from photographs, like I am for this particular piece. I've got some references, some are just pure imagination about how I put all these things together. It's important to kind of let your eyes adjust, your brain adjust to what you've just done, which might sound a bit weird because you're the artist, you've just done it, you should be aware and you should know. But often, like myself, a lot of people kind of get absorbed in the action of painting and not what the physicality of what they've painted is. So if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what we're working on. So that's now done. That's oiled out. I'm going to pop a new canvas because I'm going to start a new picture. Not that I'm leaving this behind. This is not done by any stretch of imagination. I'm going to be painting more of this painting later on, not necessarily today. But it's gearing me up to do the next picture, to work out some of the things. So sometimes working on 2-3 pictures at the same time can help you kind of see them a little bit better. Production wise, it makes you more prolific because you're generally going to be producing more pictures. Somebody just joined us there, Paul Creedy, hello, who's joined us over there on Instagram. So I've just oiled this picture out so far, so this is kind of like getting ready for the next layer of paint. I'm going to set that down. When you are doing that, make sure you stick it in a as much as possible dust-free environment. I was listening to a painter on YouTube this week, and he was doing a plein air painting out in the wild somewhere, and he had all of these little flies stuck to his canvas, and he said, "Oh, I could have picked them all out, but because it was a recording of the event of actually painting the picture, he's left them in." So if I zoom you back out on Instagram, YouTube and Twitch, because you don't necessarily see my face that close. So this is the new canvas. You can see it's quite a sizable piece. These are all different formats that these pictures are going to be, and it's purely for each specific composition. And so for this next one, just going to put up a screen for you guys over on YouTube, Instagram and Twitch. Oh, Jill, hello Jill, you just joined us on Instagram. How you doing? I've got some pictures of there's a gentleman called Damien who I met well, he was actually in my university course, so this goes back to 1990 to 93 when I graduated. lost contact with each other for years, and then just when the mammalians started, kind of reconnected with lots of different people, brought them all together. So he's going to be the next one. And I'd worked out, we met him, we had a conversation, great conversation, and I kind of had this idea about what his portraiture was going to be, and that's sitting in my head as kind of a loose compositional thing. It's not until you start to put it on a canvas. Oh, he said hello. Hi, Jill. It's not until you start to put it on a canvas that you can figure out whether it looks right. Sometimes in the act of actually putting it on paper, you go, do you know what? In a sketchbook it looks fine, but physicality, when it's this sort of scale and it's in front of you, you might need to change a few things. So what I'm going to do today is just basically lightly sketch out some positioning of some things. Now, the part of the mammalians was also say all of this is based on a conversation. It's quite surreal in its composition because it's not necessarily a true likeness of somebody's face, say, sitting, posing for a portrait. It's more to do about the conversation that we had. So some of the elements are quite obscure. The elements that Damon's going to have is he actually had two animals. I let each person pick an animal that would represent them, and the animal appears in some format in every portrait for mammalians. Now with Damien's, his is actually going to be the wallpaper in the background, and I was sketching the idea that I quite like that kind of repeated pattern. He picked two animals. He picked a baboon and a wolf, and you might think it's obscure choices, but I kind of sketched out some very graphic representations of a baboon. I'll show you guys in a second, Instagram, Facebook and Twitch. So this is the baboon and this is the wolf. So this is going to be like the repeated pattern in a wallpaper behind. So I drew these out kind of knowing the scale of my canvas, about where I was going to position these things in place. But the other elements that are going to be involved are quite an ornate mirror, and his portrait will actually be the back of his head as a reflection in the mirror, and there's a small strip of if you get the photo booth, there'll be 4 kind of pictures kind of leant up against the mirror, and there's going to be a small candle. And funny enough, today when I was walking around the house, I kind of spotted, we actually have candles in the house, this little candle, and I just thought that's the perfect size and shape of a candle I need. So this is something I might paint from life, even though the picture is a construct of photographic imagery and imagination. I'm actually going to be using a little bit of reality to it as well. I'm not necessarily going to draw so much detail today. This is literally about the initial stages of figuring out where the picture is. So I'll be working on. So for you guys over on YouTube, Twitch and Facebook, if I hold these up so you can see the 2 animal references that I was talking about. So we've got the wolf and the baboon, and they're not going to be painted in real life colours. I wanted kind of a very subtle, quiet representation of them. So I don't remember the flock wallpaper you would have got in the 1970s. It's if it's a green background, it's a slightly darker green, fuzzy felt type of material that was kind of on it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, research it, go and have a Google of it. It was weird stuff, but it was a big craze for it back in the 70s and early 80s. His isn't going to be green, his is going to be slightly different colours. I kind of think I know what colours I want, but I'm not 100% sure, and it's not until I actually put it on the canvas will I kind of find out. Which is part of the enjoyment of painting, I think, sometimes. If you plan it to death, going through the motions of it takes away the excitement of it, and for me that kind of it tails my it kind of constrains my enthusiasm for painting. Planning is good to a certain stage, but then the act of actually doing it is the kind of the really interesting thing. So that's what I'm going to be working on today. The other one is it's going to be a large ornate kind of French uh, uh, stand mirror. And it's going to be sitting on a shelf with the kind of the wallpaper in the background with a small candle to the side. Leaning up against that, we'll have that kind of strip of passport photograph style photographs. Again, scale-wise, I need to kind of figure out where this thing is, and I know that I need the mirror to be quite sizable. It's an oval mirror that I've kind of picked to represent. Might bring that over a little bit more actually. So I'm just going to put in a very loose, this is just a very loose oval shape. It's always better as well if you're not sitting on a swivelly chair and moving around at the same time. Makes it a little bit easier for you. Put that one down. So this is really loose. This is just charcoal that I'm using. It probably won't even appear in the final. It won't appear in the final painting. I'm going to kind of almost rub it out. Once I've got it kind of marked in, I can place the paint on the surface and remove the charcoal. Or you can actually put like a layer of like not clear varnish, but it's like a matte acrylic spray over the surface to fix it if you're working on a drawing that way. So I get the idea of the size of the scale of the big shapes, the big things, the components within the picture. This is on a stand, so there's like two arms that come out the side of it. Again, it's going to add a bit of width to the picture. It's sat on a table. I'm not sure if I put it on a table. I think I'm going to put it on a table surface, and then position the candlestick as well. It's a stand bit that comes down the centre of the stand, and then the stand itself. Now there's obviously width. As you sort of come down, you can start to get the perspective about where this thing's going to sit on the table. So it is very loose at the moment. I'll go into a more refined drawing later, I think. It's just literally today, just to get the bare bones of this thing down. So working quite quickly. I have kind of like a vague visual image in my head that I want to kind of get down to onto the canvas, so I can then start to further investigate certain things. I wasn't sure where to place my candle. I thought about that earlier, but I did like the idea of kind of having the strip kind of leant up against the mirror itself. I think I might actually like to mirror the strip of photographs kind of leant to one side. So this strip of photographs has like a 360 effect. So it'll be pictures of Damien from the front and the two sides, and different facial positions in that strip. But this one in the main will actually be sort of the back of Damien's head. Again, this all relates back to the conversation that we had. There's more depth to it, and there's more reasoning to it, which I'm not going to give out now. I'm going to wait until all of the pieces are done together and hopefully exhibit them, and that's where more of the story, the narrative will come out. It's interesting to see what the reactions were to the paintings that I've done so far. I've done one of Steve, which is kind of sat behind me over the last few weeks, and did one with a friend called Carly. She's the one holding the orangutan, and Julie's the one holding the horse. Damien is going to have the orangutan and the wolf. in the background, and there's about 20 other portraits within this series, so there's quite a lot of work still to do, and it's going to take time, and I'm not worrying about knocking these things out. I want to make sure that I give time to each painting. As I said, it's taken me kind of 2 years to get to the quality of my painting that I'm more happier with, to reflect those. Some people might say that's professional procrastination. I might agree in certain respects, but I think there's a maturity in my work now that wasn't necessarily quite honed to get to the quality of the works I wanted. So just again, literally, I want this kind of be lent up against the mirror. So I'm working out sort of like a rough form shape of how big the strip of photographs are going to be. That's broken down into four equal parts, and already I can see that part isn't big enough, so I'm going to raise that bit up. This might be more refined, or this will be more refined. I wanted to give them a slight curve to it as well, like it's an older strip of photographs. I don't know if you have ever been to a photo booth and had these done, but when they come out very flat and pristine, but when they kind of knock around in people's drawers, the edges get bashed a bit and they sort of start to curl up a little bit. So I wanted that kind of feeling that it's been around for a little while, but they will have in each of them a little minuet portrait. So Damien's actually getting 5 portraits, one at the back of his head, and which kind of leads you nicely to the main picture, and a candle on this side, which again I want on this table. So thinking about where the background is, obviously this is a cylindrical base. You see how rough my cylinders are. It's not quite straight. It's more ornate than this, but the rough kind of dimensions of it are that big, which gives me kind of a horizon line. I can take it back. Take it back to about there, which gives enough space for the back of the mirror as well. So that horizon line comes down to about there. Take that out this side. Again, this is really loose at the moment. And here as well, got the candlestick, I think. It's going to be an unlit candlestick, which is this one. And a nice little holder as well. So that's sat on the table. Like a little tiny tube thing, and then the base of it kind of comes out this way, and there's like a little, I don't know if you've ever heard of Wee Willie Winky. Some of you might have, some of you might not have. Oh, Nicola J.R. you said very interested in watching, but you've got to run. No worries. Really looking forward to checking it out. Yeah, don't worry. This will be going on for quite some time. Not necessarily today, but over the next few weeks, you'll kind of see posts and things. So thanks for dropping by. Join us again next week if you want to. I normally start this at 2 o'clock for those who haven't seen this before. On a Saturday. I used to do it for 2 hours. I'm kind of doing it until I've finished talking about what I'm doing. But if the conversation starts, and guys, you can join in any format wherever you are, on YouTube, Facebook or Twitch. If there's something you want to talk about, please do, and the conversation can carry on. So thanks for dropping by, appreciate that. So yeah, this candle, I want to kind of break through that horizon line a little bit, so it gives me a sense of scale. It's slightly tapered as well when it comes to the top. And an idea of where that's going to go into the cup of the candlestick. I've got reference images of real sort of candlesticks as well, so you can get a little bit more realism to it. This is, I'm not looking necessarily to have a hyper-realistic painting. What I'm looking forward to trying to achieve is to have a representation that you can understand and see the image, but I'm not going to get stuck into the nuances of, you know, really fine hyper-realism detail. I respect that type of painting a lot, but for me, in these range of works, it's not necessarily the main focus. It's more to have a good understanding of it looks like the object, but I don't necessarily have to have all of the refined detail to it. There's a slight oldness to the top of the candle as well, the wick. So get that. This is going to be unlit, and in the background, this wallpaper is going to have this repeated pattern, and then I can play around with positioning where each of these kind of little characters are going to go. I quite like the idea that they kind of goes from light to dark. So there's actually light on this side where there's an unlit candle, and it's darker on this side. It's not like going chiaroscuro from a strong dramatic light to a very menacing darkness. There's going to be a soft transition between them, but I can now place kind of these characters and see how they would look in a repeated pattern. And what's quite nice is they might just kind of just slowly peek out from behind certain of the objects that are sat in front. So it'll be subtle, they'll be there, you might not recognize them initially in the picture. What normally people will look at straight away is the portrait, and then you can discover these animals kind of hiding in the background. But I can just play around with how I want them to repeat. So, you know, even though it's going to be behind it, I can kind of place where these things are going to come. Because I kind of sketched them out on a card first, it helps me figure out scale. I knew the size of the canvas, so I kind of sketched these to fit this first. But I can play around with them. You know, I don't want them necessarily just in the line. I like that kind of element where they kind of sit out above each other. What I might do is just start marking the cards in themselves as a positioning tool. Put that halfway down, so I know that the wolf will fit in here, and the baboon will fit there, and a repeated pattern. If I swap these around and start to put that one there, underneath, so I can see where that baboon's going to go. I'm literally going to put a W and a B. So this is the baboon, this is the wolf, and this will be the baboon. Bring that straight up. And I'm just going to tile them as such and take them right across, because I've got these. It's not necessarily where the image is on the card, but the cards are the same uniform shape and size, so I can move that image into the center of these things, so I can move them around. So that was there, move that across to there. So it's a bit like a tiling effect of where these things are going to go. So even though they might be behind the mirror itself, in other areas, like this one, that's going to be wolf, you'll see a part of the wolf, you'll see a part of the baboon, you'll see the wolf here, you won't see the baboon there, you won't see the wolf there, but you might see part of the baboon here. So it's giving you a sense of a hint of a repetition, but there you go. So it's like it's a bit like gridding out, I suppose, in a very loose sense. And just there as well. So we have wolf, baboon, wolf, baboon, baboon, wolf, baboon, wolf, and then baboon. So I say each of these will be a portrait. They'll be sat on the table. I'm not adding any details of shadows and of structures just yet. It's literally to see how this thing sits in that kind of space. I can go more into the drawing at a later stage with it. I have the scale of each animal, so I want to kind of pop that in. I do want to kind of make it central. So if this is the center of that tile, bring that down a little bit straighter. I know roughly the scale of the wolf and where he'll fit, and it's kind of rough shape, his big shape. And the same for the baboon, where he'll come with space either the top, below, space there. So the top of the baboon's head is actually going to be just peeking above that kind of tabletop, which I quite like. There's quite a bit of humour to that for some reason for me. So that's what I'm going to try and keep that bit to it. And the base of the wolf on this baboon here. Ooh. He's got his feet, and then his legs go out that way. So in this one it's the wolf, so his bottom will come in this way, and his tail will go out that way. I'm going to kind of make almost like a stencil of these, and just to help me keep that mechanical kind of printed image look, stenciled image basically, to each of these areas. Initially I hadn't thought about doing that until I was kind of watching a program about graffiti art and using stencils and spraying and how kind of efficient it was, and I went, oh, that would work. So keeping your eyes open to different influences in different genres can sometimes be a real benefit to the images that you want to create. It doesn't always have to be quite so purist, or mine doesn't anyway. Positioning of this baboon, I say, even though it's behind the mirror, I kind of want to keep a truthfulness to the repetition of it all. I want them to finish on the same level. The wolf is going here. Again, I could keep in line, or I could change them. Kind of put half a tile up that way, which might be better. Not too sure. I've did this stage linear. It can look a bit tiley like that. I think having it slightly, having it off center, kind of like that, might be more interesting. Pop it in here just to see visually. Again, this is just visually so I can get a sense, stand back and see some of these sketched in elements to see how they look. It comes in here, so it's wolf, and then baboon. Again, part of his baboon's going to be coming out from behind that picture. The wolf there, baboon there. Don't know. So again, just working out the real basics of this picture. Having the space here kind of leading you in, it won't necessarily just be a flat white square, so the light itself can add structure. Whether this is going to be darker on one side, lighter on the other, the light itself will be darker in this area leading towards the light, which will, even though this is a very flat surface and going off in that direction, will be darker on this side, so it'll add some structure to it. So allowing the light to create structure and drama or visual interest is an important one as well. So I can now sit back and reflect on it. I do think they're a bit tily and a bit boxy, so I think where I'm going to move that tile to have it halfway. It does mean that one sits kind of flush with it, but let's see. So that would now be a wolf. So the wolf shape will move to here. So you see a part of his tail come out underneath. The baboon will poke just above the top of that, which is quite nice. So that's the baboon. This is wolf. So that new one, that one will be wolf. Am I right? Oh, so I don't get confused. Wolf, baboon, wolf, baboon, wolf. That's a wolf. So the other part of the wolf will poke out just behind that one there. That's the baboon. So the bottom of the baboon. Who would have thought we'd be talking about baboons' bottoms in a stream a year ago? But it's just to figure all things out, and then part of the baboon will still appear behind this one, just the top of his head, similar to this one here. And wolf is now there, which is where the tail is. I think that's slightly more interesting. Baboon, that's what we're doing there. So getting that kind of just offset repeated pattern is slightly more interesting than just having them kind of side by side repeating that way. Thinking back to it, it's probably how wallpaper looks. They don't tend to have that tiled effect that they seem to have if it's got images on, basically. That kind of slightly offset repeated pattern. I'm going to go more into detail about drawing each one of these out in these specific areas at a later stage, and obviously a more refined drawing of this ornate stand mirror, how that works, how it actually fits into this curved space here. I don't want it to be angled. Often when you're getting reference shots of these things, you angle them so you don't get in the photograph, but the problem is if you angle the mirror itself, it looks slightly obscure. I want it to be a stand-up mirror, so it's reflecting back, a true reflection of Damien, but it will be the back of his head. I've got images of what I'm talking about for Damien over on Instagram, sorry, over on YouTube, Twitch and Facebook. So I'm going to flick over to my other screen and just show people those. I'll flick you around on Instagram so you can see my computer screen. So basically, this is the back of Damien's head that I'm going to have. I'm also going to have this kind of tiled image, that kind of photo strip. So hopefully this works. Sorry, I get kind of wobbly, so I can't actually see what you're seeing. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, hang on. Live paused, reconnecting. Went too far. There we are. So I don't think you can see that on the screen. It's not a great shot. You see how messy my desk is in my studio. So that's the kind of strip of Damien's in the back of his head. Sorry, that's not so nice tour of my dirty studio, but you get what I mean, get what I'm talking about. You can kind of see a little bit more up closely as well. It's very loose, very basic in a minute. It's not about having perfection of refinement. It's more about figuring things out, how they look visually, as an abstract almost, of where big block shapes are going to go. Does that work in my format? And at this stage, that's when I'm going to take a little bit of a pause from working on it, which might not seem like I've done much work today, but visually getting it out now into this space, I can then reflect back on my reference photographs and see how that will work, whether I need to move structures around before I go into refining the drawing of these things. There's no point refining the drawing of them if you suddenly go, do you know what, if I just shifted that back a bit, it would look a lot better. I don't want to go into all of that work, and this is what I was saying about trying to keep your work continuous and kind of invigorates you to do it, but don't that you're having to rework stuff all the time, because that can be demoralizing. You do a beautiful painting of a candlestick and then you go, do you know what, it's in the wrong place, I'm going to move it, and it's harder to move. It's been okay to change the paintings that I've been working on recently, because there was such a time difference and I knew the things had to change. But I don't want to go through that process there in every picture, because it will slow everything down. Again, it's not about speed, but I want the process of the painting to be fluid, to just go from start to finish. Yes, there will be nuanced areas where I have to tweak and adjust and things like that, but for big changes like moving positioning of things, I don't want to necessarily have to go through that again. So I want to get the structure right. So I'm going to spend a bit of time figuring that out. It will mean my painting becomes quicker, because I'm not having to rework the painting over and over and over again. Hopefully that all makes sense. We had a few people join us there: Denise McCabe, Luckenbrass, Peter Kelly and Claire Bryan. You can say hi, you can chat away if you want to and add a comment. You can send a little heart thing, whatever it is, wherever you are. You can talk about your artwork as well. I knew today wasn't going to be a big day for me actually demonstrating and doing stuff. I did talk a bit last week as well, so there hadn't been quite so many demos. I'm actually finding it, especially when it gets to more nuanced areas, that it takes concentration to paint. And although I love doing demos, sometimes it's okay if I'm doing a demo type thing, but me actually pondering positioning the paint and the action of painting takes me time to focus